Masechet Eruvin, 64. We're starting on 63b, about a case where there's a non-Jew who's living in the courtyard together with Jews. We saw that the halacha is that if anyone in the courtyard, Jew or non-Jew, is not willing to participate and share their ownership of the courtyard with everybody else, then it's a problem. You can't make an eruv. Eruv means a partnership that everybody agrees to allow each other to have common use of the courtyard. In the case of a non-Jew, one needs to rent the right to use his courtyard. If he agrees, then that's fine. If the non-Jew does not agree, then you have a problem, and that's what the beginning of our daf is going to be talking about. Then we're going to be getting into getting drunk and getting sober, some advice about getting sober, and then a little bit about hatarat nedarim. So a lot of interesting topics. Okay, we start with the story. It was this a non-Jew named Lachman who lived in this alleyway, this mavoy, together with Jews. So they went and asked him, says, can we rent your domain from you and use the alleyway together so we can carry? La Ogadlu, he did not want to. We saw last time a couple of reasons why a non-Jew might not want to lend it out. So he did not want to. So they went into the Gadol, Abaye, and they said, what should we do? So Abaye says, we could use a loophole. Remember, in the Mishnah, it says that if there's, according to the majority opinion, if there's one Jew and one non-Jew together, only two people, then the Jew can carry. It doesn't have to, because it's not a common occurrence that one Jew lives with one non-Jew. So the rabbis did not make a gezerah in that case. We don't have to worry about that case. Therefore, here's what you do, he says. Everybody, all the Jews should renounce their domain, renounce their possession of the courtyard, and give it all to one Jew. And then it'll be as if it's one Jew who has all the rights of that domain, together with one non-Jew. And in that case, you don't even need an eruv at all. So that's a good loophole. Then we don't need the agreement of the non-Jew. Okay. So they question Abaye's loophole here. He says the only reason why one Jew and one non-Jew is allowed is because it doesn't happen often. It's not common for one Jew and one non-Jew to live together. But here, this happens all the time. Look, they are living together. There's a lot of people. And so now you're just taking a common occurrence and making it into an uncommon, but it really is a common occurrence. So how could you do that? He says this itself is unusual. It's unusual for everybody in a courtyard to renounce their domain and give it to one person. So this is also what you're doing. This loophole is also an unusual case, and therefore it fits in to the law of the Mishnah, and there's no reason to make a gezerah. Rabbanan also would not have made a gezerah, did not make a gezerah in such a case. So therefore, this loophole works. That was Abaye's advice. So then Abaye and Rava, their colleagues, so they went and told this to Rava. What Abaye said, this is not a good idea. So because then you got rid of the entire law of mavoy, of making an eruv, and that you got rid of the entire law of making an eruv in that mavoy, because actually now you don't even need an eruv at all. And so, you went from having a problem to now not needing it at all. And people, what will people in the future say? Oh, there's no such thing as eruv. You don't need an eruv. You can just carry without an eruv. They won't even know that there's such a halacha. So he says, and possible answer, Rav Huna answering for Abaye, says the me'arveh. Maybe they made an eruv anyway, even though you don't need it. They went and they all got together and they put a piece of bread just to show that you need to make an eruv. Well, that's not a good idea either. Yomru eruv mo'il b'mkom goy. So because then you'll say, oh, you can make an eruv even with a non-Jew there who doesn't agree and won't rent the property. People will say, oh, you can still make an eruv like that. So it's not a good idea to make an eruv. So answer the machrazinan. We'll make an announcement. We'll make an announcement. The only reason we made an eruv is so you'll remember that we have to make eruvin, but really eruvin don't work when you have a non-Jew. I'm only doing it here because we all join together and there's one and one. So can we make an announcement? No, that also doesn't work. You're going to make an announcement for children. In other words, it'll work for all the adults right now who are learning to understand, but the kids are growing up, they're going to all see, oh, we made an eruv with a non-Jew, so you're allowed to do that. You're not repeating this announcement every day, every year, and so people will still get the wrong idea. So therefore, Rava does not like that loophole, and he offers a different solution. One person, one Jew, go and make friends with him, and just ask him to use a little bit of his space. Says, I have to store my ladder. You mind if I just put it in your garage? Once he does that, then he is like his hired laborer or harvester. And we have a halacha about that. He says you don't have to get permission from the boss, from the non-Jew who owns the whole thing, even as if there's a hired laborer who works in his field, because that laborer has access to the land, and so therefore he also has a right to lend out, to give you permission to use that land, because he could use it himself. And so this is the same thing. As long as you have one person who says, hey, can you just hold my this can for a few days, hold this basket of fruit, can I leave it by you, going away, I need someone to hang on to it. So as long as you have that, you have a foothold, and that is enough to use. That person has the right then to offer the shared use of the courtyard on behalf of the non-Jew, even without the non-Jew knowing. And so this is a second loophole that we can use. Okay, good. Question on that one. What if the non-Jew has 5 hired laborers and 5 harvesters? Let's say they're all Jews. Right now, do you have to get permission from all of them? That would be hard. Then you have to go around this extra work. He says, no, you don't have to do that. This whole halacha was only as a loophole for leniency. The fact that we don't have to go to the owner, we can even go to someone who works for him. Even one person can give the right. You don't have to go to all of them. So therefore, this whole thing is for leniency. Okay, this is actually important and practical, because it means when we're making something in a modern day city, who are you going to go to? Who owns the whole city? I mean, you have to go to the top person, or just someone who has a right to close off streets. A policeman, a police chief. You don't have to go get permission from every the highest government official. All right, so that's a good important halacha. And now that we mentioned it, we're going to go into it a little further, this particular one. Kufa, Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shemuel, afilu sechiro, afilu lekito, noten eruvo v'dayos. Even a person's laborer can contribute an eruv instead of the boss, and that is sufficient. Okay, that's what Rav Yehuda said in Rav Shemuel. Rav Nachman, kama ma'aliyah hashema'ata. Rav Nachman says, what a beautiful halacha. He agreed with it, and he praised it. Now that we mentioned these 2 sages, we're going to mention another halacha. The Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shemuel, same sage, Shata Rebeit Yayin Al Yored. Nothing to do with what we said before. A very different halacha that says if someone drank 3 ounces of wine, then he should not give a pesak halacha. He should not give a halachic ruling. Even though it's not so much wine, it's enough that the person is not going to be able to be sharp, be on the ball, and so he should not give a pesak halacha. Amar Rav Nachman, lama al yahashma'ata. Rav Nachman says to this one, I do not like this halachic ruling. The first one he says he likes it. This one he says he doesn't like it. Why? He says, well, I can't think straight before I have something to drink. Okay, he needs a shot to get his mind clear. So he says the opposite, right? A little, not too much, but a little bit of wine helps him. So he says he doesn't like that halacha. Okay, Amar le Rava, my tama mordhachi. Rava, here's what Rav Nachman said. He says, why are you speaking like this? You shouldn't say, I like this Torah, I don't like this Torah. It's all Torah. Pasuk in Mishle that says someone who keeps company with prostitutes, he is going to lose money. Okay, but Mishle could mean that literally, but we're going to take it metaphorically. We're taking the word zonot and splitting it into two and saying zon na'ah. Anyone who hears the tradition says, oh, I like that one. Another one says, I don't like that one. No, you shouldn't do that. Then you're going to lose out the wealth of Torah, right? You should take in everything. Everything is Torah. Everything is sacred and worthy of study. And, it's true, okay, you don't follow everything halakha l'maaseh. You decide what is the halakha, what is not the halakha, but you shouldn't say, I don't like this opinion. Okay, Rahman says, you're right. I shouldn't have spoken like that. I changed my mind. All right, maybe he didn't have his drink yet. That's why he said that. Okay, so now he learned his lesson. He still might take a drink, but he's not going to say that he doesn't like his colleague's opinion. All right, since we already started talking about drinking, and you shouldn't give a psak halacha while drunk. Another halacha: someone who drinks some alcohol should not pray. He should not pray, but b'di'avad, if he did pray, he fulfilled his obligation to say shacharit mincha. Shikor alit pelo, but if his person is completely drunk, then he should not pray at all. Then his prayer is an abomination. It's disgusting. God does not want that prayer. This is practical on Purim. Sometimes people get drunk and then they go pray mincha, they pray arbit, and they're not allowed to. They have to wait till they should pray mincha before, or wait till arbit, wait till after they get sober, or not drink that much to make sure that they're in a state that they can pray. What's the definition of these two stages of drunkenness? The one that you can pray b'di'avad and the one that you cannot pray even b'di'avad. So for this answer, we have to go into a story of two rabbis who were separating from each other. Okay, they had spent some time together, and now they were going different ways, and they weren't going to see each other for a long time, and they wanted to remember each other. So nowadays you give someone a gift, or postcard or something, and every time you use that picture, they say, oh, I remember who gave me this. But the rabbis did the same thing, except they did it with Divrei Torah. Let's each tell each other a chidush, some Torah that we didn't know before. Because we learned that before you leave your friend, you should always say a last halacha, and that way you'll remember the person by them. Whenever that halacha comes up, you say, oh, I know who told me that, my good friend, and then you remember him well. Okay, that's a beautiful thing to do. And there's midrash about Yaakov and Yehuda doing that. Yehuda, before he goes to Egypt, he teaches him halacha, so he'll remember him. Okay, so the first halacha, patachad ve'amar, hechi damesh shatui ve'hechi damesh shikor. Oh, this very thing. That's why we're quoting this. What does it mean to be drunk, or a little bit drunk, or very drunk? Shatui kol she'yachol ledaber lifnei hamelech. Shikor kol she'eno yachol ledaber lifnei hamelech. Okay, the dividing line is, would you be able to go and present something before a king? If you're so drunk that you wouldn't be able to get your words out properly, you're not presentable, then that is shikor. If you can't present before a king, certainly you can't present and pray before Borei Olam. So then you can't pray at all. But if the person drank, but not that much, and he still is presentable, then b'di'avad, if he prayed, it is okay. Okay, that was one halacha. The other side gave a different halacha about a different subject altogether. Again, a convert. Let's say a convert has some property and dies without children. So then he has no heirs, because his biological family, who normally his brother, his father, are not considered his halachic family. So his biological family does not inherit. And if he doesn't have children, after he converts, then there's no one. So therefore, his property just becomes hefker. Anyone can come and take it first come, first serve. So if a person goes and grabs on to a dead convert's inheritance, what should he do if he wants to hold on to it to make sure that it's not taken away? Because he got it so easily, he's always afraid someone else will come and claim it as I got there first. So what should he do? He should buy a Sefer Torah with that money. In other words, this you should do something good. You got a windfall. You should do something good with the money, buy a Sefer Torah, and that way no one's gonna make you sell the Sefer Torah and take it away. Even the husband, the dowry, the swanny thinks he gets he got a watch, he got a toilet set, he got a bunch of things. So he's always afraid. I got all these free things. When are my in-laws going to come and take them back? So if you want to make sure that you don't have to ever give them back, buy a Torah with it. And then you'll keep it. Even if you had a business venture and you made a lot of money, you bought some stocks and did well. So a good way to hold on to it is buy a Sefer Torah with it. Also, if you found something, you're walking in the street, you find the watch, you find some cash, use it for good. He says you don't have to buy a Sefer Torah. You can also use it to write tefillin. In other words, do a mitzvah with the money that you find if it comes easily to you. Where can we learn this from? From Yaakov Avinu, when he's running away from Esav, he makes a vow. He says, Hashem, if you will bring me back to this place in safety, back to Israel in safety, then I will give you a tenth of all my property. And so you see that you should always sanctify some of what you have to Kodesh. Okay, good. So that's the end of that conversation of those two rabbis who were parting ways, and he told them this halacha about giving part of your earnings to a holy purpose. All right, now we come back to the discussion of drinking. We discussed how drunk is called drunk, and now the question is, how do you become sober? What's some tips? All right, my son just took the DMV test, right? So he asked me this question. I said, I don't know, drink coffee? He said, wrong. I would have failed. He says, you have to wait. Only time can make you, can get you sober. So let's see what the rabbis say. Amar Rami bar Abba derech mil. You should walk a mil, a Roman mile, which is about a kilometer. And so go for a walk, and then you'll feel better. Or take a nap, even any amount, any time, any amount of a nap, it will be good and help make one sober. Good. Amar Nachman Amar Rabba bar Abu lo shenu ela sheshata kedei b'rit, aval shata yoter mirivit kol sheken shederech toradto v'shena meshakarto. So Rabba says the limitation. These measurements only work if you drank a little, just one glass of wine, one rev'it. But if you drank more than that, then that will not be sufficient. Actually, it'll work the opposite. By walking, you'll get more tired and less able to focus. And if you just sleep a little, then you're going to wake up more hungover and not be in a state at all. So then those would need more time, and these small things would not be sufficient. Okay, so that's the advice, and now we're going to question this advice. You just said that 1 kilometer is enough, at least for a revi'it, to make a person sober. Is that true? Now we have a long story. The point of this long story is going to be that we're going to see that you need more than a meal. Okay, so let's read the whole story, and then we'll focus on the question. We have a braita about Maaseh Rabban Gamliel, the Nasi. He was going on a trip. He's going here. He's up in the Galilee, and on the coast. He's going from the city of Akko. He's going to Kiziv. Okay, and while he's on the way, he was on a donkey. Rabbi Eli, his student, was walking behind him. Halech acharav. Masa giluskin baderech. Happened to be it was Motza'e Pesach. Pesach just finished, as we'll see. And he saw some loaves of bread on the road, just sitting there, nobody, ownerless. Malo Eli told Giluskin min haderech. Eli, go pick them up, right? Not nice to leave food lying around. Masa, so he takes them, and they keep traveling. Matzai goy echad, amar lo, mavgai, tol giduskin alalu me elai. So Rabban Gamaliel sees this non-Jew, and Sam seems to know his name, and he calls him his name, Mavgai, come here and take the loaves of bread from Eli. See, they weren't kosher, or he didn't know if they were kosher or not, so he didn't eat them himself. He gave them to a non-Jew. Nitzpal lo Rabbi Eli. So Rabbi Eli goes and gives it to him, and now he enters into a conversation. Amar lo mehechanata. He asks Rabbi Eli, the student, asks this non-Jew, "Where are you from?" Amar lo ma'arot shel Burganin. I'm a guard in the nearby town. Oma shimcha. What is your name? Mavgai Shemeni. My name is Mavgai. Says, says, did you ever meet Rabban Gamliel? Did he ever meet you? Amar lo Alav. No, he never met me. So it's amazing. How do you know his name? Okay, so that's part one of the story. We see that, first of all, Rabban Gamliel knew with divine inspiration, he knew this person's name, even though he had never met him before. We learned 3 halachot. Whenever the students is accompanying them, his rabbi, you always look at his actions and his words to see he can learn halachot from it. So here's 3 conclusions we can learn from this story. Number 1, you don't pass by food. If you see food lying around, you should pick it up. This is important. You don't waste food. And if you want to determine whether something is kosher or not, then you go by the majority of the people that are in that area. In this case, it was mostly non-Jews, so he assumed that it must not be kosher. So he didn't eat it himself. But because it was owned by a non-Jew, this was right after Pesach, so therefore this was owned by a non-Jew on Pesach. A non-Jew is allowed to own chametz, and so we learn from here that if chametz was owned by a non-Jew on Pesach, you are allowed to then use it and derive benefit from it. Giving a present is also deriving benefit, because when you give something, you also feel good, and the person owes you one. So if it was chametz that a Jew owned, you're not allowed to benefit from it at all. You wouldn't even be allowed to give it as a gift. But in this case, since it was owned, he assumes it was owned by a non-Jew, he was able to gift it to this non-Jew to eat, except that maybe it wasn't kosher, just all year round kosher, but it was okay in terms of the chametz, that he could get hana'ah from it. Okay, good. So we learned all those things. Now, that part of the story does not relate to being drunk. Rather, this is the next part of the story that is relevant to us. He got to his destination of the city, Kiziv. Someone came and said, I'd like to undo my vow. I made a vow, and I feel bad. I want to do hatarat nadarim. Rabban Gamliel said to, probably to be Eli, who was with him, he says, didn't we drink some Italian wine, some Roman wine? It's strong. We drank some earlier. Amar lo ahen, we did. He says, in that case, I'm not in a fit state to give a psak halacha, to undo your vow, because I'm drunk. And therefore, how about come for a walk with me, and let's go on a journey until I feel sober, and then I will hear your case. And so they went until another 3 meal until they got to Tyre. If you look here, right, his original plan was to go from Akko to Chziv, but I guess he drank so much that he needed to go another 3 meal, and he ended up going all the way to Tyre, even though he didn't want to be there. He just went there so that he could become sober, and that way he could hear the case. When he got there, when he got there, then he descended from his donkey. He put on a shawl, like a robe that judges wear. So it's not just a modern thing. Even back then, judges would wear a special robe. And he sat down and he said, "Okay, now tell me the case," and he will judge it. Okay, so that's the end of the story, and we learn a lot of things from the story. First of all, that even just 1 cup, 3 ounces of this Roman wine makes someone drunk. Someone drunk should not give a psak halacha. And we learn that going on a journey can help make someone sober. And we learn that someone who wants to annul a vow should not be riding on an animal, should not be walking, should not be standing, but rather sitting. Okay, so we learn all those things. Here's now back to the main point that we need. It says that he traveled 3 meal for just a revi'it of wine. And we said before that all you need is 1 meal to go. Oh, so that's the question. And we have 2 answers. One answer is, Rome Italian wine is different because it's stronger, more intoxicating, and therefore that requires 3 meal. But regular wine, you're right, 1 meal would be enough. Okay, question on that answer. Remember back then we saw a limitation that if more person drank more than a revi'it, and drinking the strong wine is the same as drinking more than a revi'it, then going on a journey is not a good idea because that's going to make you more tired if you're going on a journey. And so in this case, if he was more drunk than the usual, going on a journey is going to make it worse. We answered, Achuv Shani. If he was going on a donkey, that's why he's not walking. If you're walking, then it's going to make you even more, you're drunk and you're walking, it's going to make you even more tired and less able to focus. But if you're riding on an animal, then you're not walking, you're not exerting energy, you're just passing time. So that's actually better. Well, now that you made a distinction between walking and riding, actually we can use that. It's a good point. And now we can come up with a better answer than the first. We scratch that one. Even according to Nabi Bar Chama, that says 1 meal is enough. You could say that that's when you're walking. When you're walking and doing exercise, that helps dispel the drunkenness, maybe from sweating or the activity gets your mind focused. But if you're only riding, it's actually worse. And so if you're riding, you need 3 meal to undo it. Walking would be only 1 meal. And so that is a second answer to that problem. Okay, so we've concluded the discussion about drinking, but we did mention something we want to analyze more within that story, which is sitting down as a judge. Is that true? You have to sit down if you're going to be a judge to do hatanat and darim? Today, nowadays, we always do that, right? The rabbis will always sit. Everybody else stands. And the one says that you can be walking, standing, or even riding on an animal. So why did you say that? Rabban Gamliel says maybe he was just tired. He wanted to sit. How do you know that that's the halacha that you have to sit? So Tana'ehi, dik alaman damar potchin b'charata, dik alaman damar en potchin b'charata. He says actually this depends on the machloket that goes back to the times of the Tanaim, and this depends on how much analysis do you need to undo a vow. There is one opinion that says potchin b'charata. All you need is simple regret that you made a vow. In other words, when you just come and say, I made a vow, and it's bad to make vows because anytime you make a vow, you're always putting yourself in danger that you might not be able to fulfill it. So he says, I feel bad, I made any vows. So for that, it's very simple to do hatara. Oh, you made a vow, hatara, okay. So that's an easy way. According to that opinion, you could be standing or walking because you don't have to sit and concentrate. But there's another opinion that says you can't have simple regret about the vow in general. You need specific. You have to go into the specifics and say, what exactly was the vow? Did you realize what will be the consequences of the vow that when you made it? How has it affected your life after? And so on and so forth, right? When you go through a lot of analysis, that requires sitting down and going through all the details. So according to that opinion, that you do need to go into the specifics, therefore you need to sit down. So the Rabban Gamliel, who sat down, he must have had the second opinion, whereas Rav Nachman, who says you can do it standing, must agree with the first opinion that all you need is a general regret. And now here we'll see this halacha, and it's a source. Back to that story, what exactly did Rabban Gamliel say to that person? How did he patach? How did he loosen? Patach is to open up. How did he open the vow? The vow is he's binding the person. How did he open up that, get him out of the bind? It says, Yesh bote כמדקרות חרב ולשון חכמים מרפא. כל הבוטה ראוי לדוקרו בחרב, אלא שלשון חכמים מרפא. So we learn from the pasuk in Mishle, someone who utters words, it's like a piercing of a sword, but tongue of the wise brings health. What does that mean? Anyone who makes a vow should be pierced by a sword because you're putting yourself in danger that you might not fulfill it. So then what should you do? Well, the tongue of the wise, meaning the sage that dissolves the vow, that will undo that problem. Okay. Amar mor ve'en ma'avidin al ha. Okay, so we see that a sage can dissolve a vow. And it's not a good idea to make vows in general. Okay, and now regarding the other next halacha that he said, that you shouldn't pass by food. Amar mor ve'en ma'avidin al ochalin. אמר רבי יוחנן משום רבי שמעון בן יוחאי לא שנו אלא בתורות הראשונים שאין בנות ישראל פרוסות בכשפים אבל בתורת האחרונים שבנות ישראל פרוסות בכשפים מעבירים. It says this halacha that you should not pass by food was only in the early generations when Jewish women did not practice witchcraft. But nowadays that they do practice witchcraft, then you should pass by the bread. In other words, maybe this bread somehow has a spell on it, and it's going to be bad luck. They're waiting for someone to come and take it, and the taker is going to be have a spell cast upon. I'm not sure exactly how this magic works, but they had to worry about that. So don't put yourself in danger in order to save the piece of bread. Tana shelamin ma'avirin, petichin and ma'avirin. But according to this, whole loaves pass by because that's the one that they would do magic on. But if just pieces of them, pieces of bread, pieces of food, that's okay because they don't do witchcraft on the pieces. Is that true that they don't make spells even on pieces? Vakatib vatechalelna oti el ami b'sha'ale se'orim u'b'tote lechem. Pasuk in Yechezkel says they profane my name and they for a handful of barley and pieces of bread. So you see, even pieces of bread, they do a chilul Hashem and they do some kind of witchcraft. The answer is no. The shakle be'agraihu, when it says they profane my name for a piece of bread, it means that even they would, if you offer them a piece of bread as a wage, they would do a terrible thing of chilul Hashem, even for just a few pennies. How much is a piece of bread worth? Okay, so that's what it means, not that witchcraft is done on a piece of bread. And last statement, Amar Rav Sheshat Mishum Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Yachol ani liftor et kol ha'olam kulo min hadin, miyom shechara bet hamikdash ועד עכשיו, שנאמר, לכן שמעי נא זאת ענייה ושחורת ולא מיין. So I can exempt the whole world from judgment from the day that the Bet HaMikdash was destroyed. Why? Because Yeshaya says, you are afflicted, you who went through the destruction of Bet HaMikdash, you are like someone who is drunk. And we just saw that someone who is drunk is not responsible, he says, for any of the mitzvot. And therefore, all the sins that Bnei Israel do after the destruction of the Bet HaMikdash, they have an excuse, as we were like drunk people, based on Yeshaya. Okay, what are we going to do with that? Metibe, shikor makaho mikach mimkaro mimkad. Avar abera sheyesh bamita mimitin oto. Malkut malkin oto. Kalosh levar reu kipikech lechol devarav. Elo shepatu min hatefila. So this, we have an objection to this, right? Although this was said by Rav Sheshat, but we have a baraita that goes against it, that says a drunk person, if he makes a business deal, it's a valid business deal. If he does something that requires the death penalty, he gets the death penalty. If you drive drunk, you can't say, oh, it's not my fault, I was drunk. No, you shouldn't have gotten drunk and put yourself in that situation. So you're responsible for your actions even when you're drunk. If you were liable to lashes, you still get lashes. The conclusion is that a drunk person, we treat like a regular person for everything except for prayer. Prayer is a special thing because prayer is not just about your actions saying the words, it's about your mind, your intent. And a drunk person cannot possibly have proper intention. So only tefillah. So this is a big question. So you know what? We go back to that first statement and we reinterpret it. When he says, I can exempt everyone from mitzvot, he didn't mean all mitzvot. The kamar nameh medin tefillah. He said only regarding tefillah. He wasn't talking about. It wasn't talking about all commandments. And we'll end with that. Baruch Adonai L'olam. Amen ve'amen.